What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dad Does Videos. Today I'm coming at you from my car because I wanted to give an update on a couple of the videos that I've made recently about selling your leased car to CarMax. If you followed my videos and if you've watched them, then you will know that I sold two cars recently. One was a Chevy Traverse, probably about 6 months back. I gave kind of a step-by-step tutorial on how to sell your leased car to CarMax. And then just recently, a few weeks ago, I showcased a video where I kind of took you along for the ride where I sold my Honda Pilot. Now, I just learned today that Honda is basically changing the terms of their contract with their consumers. I read today how they're going to be sending notifications to people who have current leases with them, basically saying, hey, the only place that you can turn in your car at the end of your lease is back to a Honda dealer. And I have issues with this for a variety of reasons. And apparently they're not the only ones. Because of the market and because of the way lease contracts are written, other consumers are doing this. People are taking advantage of the market where there is a lot of equity in the car at the end of the lease. Their residual is very low, their payoff amount is low, and the value of that car is high. So you typically have a few different options you can play with. You can take your car back to the dealership, let it go, pay the disposition fee, pay any fees for excess mileage, wear and tear. You can get a new car from the dealer or lease a new car. You can typically sell your leased car, or you can buy your leased car at the end of your contract. So a lot of people apparently are taking advantage of the equity that they have, and not only me, but others as well, and selling their used vehicles not only to the CarMax and Carvanas and Vrooms, but maybe taking a Honda car to a Chevy dealer, or a Chevy car to an Acura dealer. It doesn't matter. But apparently manufacturers, automakers are putting the brakes on this. So Honda's doing it. GM apparently just recently did it. Acura's doing it. Nissan is doing it. Infinity's doing it. And Toyota apparently is thinking about it. Ford, and I didn't know this, Ford has always set up their leases like this. You cannot sell, or have not been able to sell, a leased Ford vehicle at the end of the lease to another dealership. You always have to bring it back to Ford. Regardless of that, this is, and I have multiple issues with this. The first being, and I'm just going to run through a few. The first being, legally, I'm not sure how these companies can do this. And I will be the first to admit, I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand contractual obligations, and maybe there's some language in these contracts that allows these companies to do that. But if it's not written in your lease contract, I'm not sure how any of these car manufacturers can actually change the terms of the contract right now, all of a sudden, without fair warning. This has always been an opportunity at the end of a lease where it is up to the consumer. You're allowed to do those three things at the end of the lease, and the decision is up to you. So I'm not sure how situationally now someone can just change the contract. Now, obviously, these car manufacturers have a lot of lawyers, so I'm sure they're doing this the correct way. But first and foremost, as a consumer, I have a big problem with that in terms of just changing the terms of a contract. I'm pretty sure if I went to one of these companies and said, hey, I'm going to change the terms of my lease contract, they would have a problem with that, and I probably couldn't do it. Assuming legally they can do this, and I have to assume that's a pretty safe assumption at this point. What's going to happen when you take your car back to, again, in my case, Honda? If that's the only place that I can take it and I don't want that car anymore, usually I have other options to consider, right? So are they still going to charge me that disposition fee? Usually at the end of a lease, it's $300 to $600 just for you to bring the car back, and that for them to quote unquote dispose of it. And technically I get it. That means getting it ready for the next customer, but just to charge that fee, you're kind of pushed into that at this point, right? Because you don't have that option. That option's taken away from you to actually go and sell your car or do something else with it at the end of the lease rather than turning it into the dealer or turning it into the dealer and getting another one. But if you just want to walk away, to me, as a consumer, how are you still charging me that disposition fee? You're taking away my chance to avoid that. Another thing that I have an issue with, this flies in the face of how our economy in America is built. It's based on a capitalistic society. It's based on supply and demand. So a situation like this, when there is a demand for something that is lower in supply, i.e. used cars, the price of those things goes up. So if, when we went through COVID, right, you couldn't find sanitizer anywhere. But guess what? When you did, it was more expensive than it was before. Same concept here. It's basic supply and demand principles. Me being the lease owner of that car, it is my decision, in theory, of what I want to do with that. If I can benefit from the market and benefit from there being fewer vehicles of supply, the demand is going to go up, which means the price is going to go up, and I'm going to take advantage of that. Another thing that I have an issue with, it's kind of a reverse monopoly, if you want to think out of it like that. So what incentive does Honda, and I keep using Honda here, but it's not, it's any of these car manufacturers who demand or put kind of guidelines around making people like me and other consumers take their leased car back to the dealership where they got it from, or another dealership of the same brand. But they're creating kind of a reverse monopoly. And what I mean by that is that where's the incentive for them to give you the right amount of equity that you've built up in your car? Again, taking my Pilot example, my Honda dealer was going to give me $1,700 for it. I got $5,500 from CarMax. If they're going to push me and other consumers to have to return those cars to the dealerships, what's the incentive for them to give me the right equity back, right? They can just say, well, you have to do this. We're not giving you zero. And then they take advantage of the market and price their cars, their used cars, the way they should be, but I'm not getting a cut of that when I was the owner of that lease. So they've kind of flipped the market, so to speak. So instead of a monopoly, when you own all the services related to, something you're providing and people can't go anywhere else for that service, they're basically kind of cornering the market and saying, well, you have to return this to us. We're going to give you the amount, if any, right? Because they don't technically have to give you anything. We're going to give you the amount that we think is right for that. And trust me, they're going to give you a lesser amount than what it's worth, right? So what can you do? Let's assume this is all legal and Honda, Infiniti, Toyota, if they do it, on and on, they're all within their rights to do this, to change the contract, so to speak, of people who've already leased through them. You can still go through the process to sell your car to CarMax or Carvana or Vroom. And let me explain how to do this. There's a little bit more effort involved, and you're not going to get as big of a cut as you did before. But one of the options at the end of your lease, right, is to purchase that vehicle if you would like to do that. So instead of kind of selling your leased vehicle to any of those companies like a CarMax or a Vroom or a Carvana or a different kind of dealership outside of the brand, right? Selling a Honda to a Chevy dealership and vice versa. What you could do is purchase your vehicle at the end of your lease and then turn around and flip it and then sell it to CarMax. So technically you would be the owner of that car at that point, and then you could do whatever you want with it. Now, there are a couple stipulations here. So before you do that, you're obviously going to want to go to Carvana or whatever place to get an appraisal, and it's in writing. And like I talked about in my videos, the Carvana appraisal is good for 7 days. So you get that, you have a better feel for what your car is worth, what they're going to pay for your car. If it's significant, and I'm talking multiple thousands of dollars, and say you're selling a car that the payoff amount is $20,000, and you know, the sales taxes are 6, 7, 8% depending upon where you live. So you're paying a little bit more, right? Because when you're buying that car, you have to pay for the sales taxes, you have to pay for the title. So you can buy that car, pay for the taxes on it, and then turn around and then just flip that to CarMax or whatever choice you want. There's a little bit more effort in there, right? You're running all over the place. You have to get a loan. You have to do this in kind of a confined time period because your appraisal from CarMax, you know, is only good for 7 days. So this all has to fit together. And then not only that, but the value that you're getting from CarMax or whatever they're paying you has to be significant enough so that even paying those sales taxes when you purchase the car doesn't eat into your profit that much. So if they're offering you a price that maybe is $1,000 or $2,000 above what you're buying the car for, it's probably not worth it given the sales taxes. But like me, I probably would have done it anyway when I sold my Pilot because I netted $5,500. The sales taxes were something like, if I bought it, something like $1,200, I think, off the top of my head. So that would have still left me with, you know, $3,700, $3,800, actually even more than that. So I would have done that, a little bit of effort there, but it's not probably the best place for everyone. So you could still get by. It's just disappointing